Welcome to Female Fluence. We are a place of women empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Pearl Shua, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of three, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. Balancing a C-suite executive role with motherhood and marriage is no small feat. It requires a lot of planning, time management, strong relationships, and most importantly, a willingness to embrace flexibility. It's not about striving for perfection, but about creating a rhythm that works for your unique family and professional life. In a male-dominated field, women often learn early that there's no one-size-fits-all path to success. Individuality matters, and when motherhood enters the picture, the balancing act becomes even more complex. Only 28% of C-suite executives today are women, a group faced with daily choices between work and family, ambition and caregiving, career advancement, and personal well-being. Too often, working moms carry an invisible weight of guilt and self-doubt, questioning whether they're doing enough at work, at home, or for themselves. But the truth is, ladies, you are enough. You're doing a lot. In today's conversation, we're exploring what it really takes to lead at the top while staying grounded in what matters to you most. As women, we don't have to be everything to everybody. We just have to be authentic, intentional, and unapologetically ourselves. Joining me today is Shayla Smith, the Chief Operating Officer at a leading law firm based in Los Angeles. In her pivotal role, Shayla oversees all key functions of the firm and plays an instrumental part in shaping its success. She's no stranger to being the only woman in the boardroom. Through experience, though, she has learned how to advocate for herself, negotiate confidently, and climb the corporate ladder with intention. Shayla is on a mission to help other women to do the same, to aim high, speak up, and lead with both strength and empathy. She's passionate about creating environments where women can truly thrive without having to choose between their career and family. In today's conversation, we will discuss what it takes to balance motherhood with a high-level executive role, how to build a workplace where women are set up to succeed, and how to lead with authenticity and empowerment. Shayla, I'm so excited to have you on Female Fluence. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me, Pearl. This is an amazing opportunity. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. So I want my clients to get to know you a little bit better. If you can kind of share your background and let us know the key experiences that have shaped your journey and where you are today.
Yes, so I am born in Dallas, Texas. But I was raised in Los Angeles, and I've spent the greater of my childhood and adult life in Los Angeles. I, come from a divorced mother who worked 3 jobs. She had 2 kids in private education. And my parents divorced kind of early on when I was about 2 years old, and my brother was 4. And, she was a super strong person. My mom has had several autoimmune diseases since I was about 8 years old. And so growing up and the dynamic of my household was very unique. I attended UC Davis partly because, it was a great opportunity for me. And, it was the financially, fiscally responsible thing to do. And I had the opportunity to join Target shortly after college, which really shaped, and we can kind of talk more about that, my journey and my career. I learned so much. Big box retail is not for the weak. And I worked in wealth management and I worked at another entertainment law firm, Ziffer and Brittingham. And I love where I'm at now, Lictor, Grossman, Nichols, Feldman, Rogal, Shakur, and Clark. And so I haven't had a straight path in my career, but every opportunity, every interaction has really helped to shape who I am today. And I'm very proud. I'm part of several organizations that help me to give back and help my children to be more involved in the communities. And that's something that is really important to me as well. My mom was always involved in volunteerism and things of that sort. And so that was, something I grew up on. And so those are, kind of my background. And my mom unfortunately passed away last year
I'm sorry.
after, yes, thank you, after, fighting these autoimmune diseases. And I'm so happy that, she's instilled in me so much. And we can kind of get into a little bit more, but just it is something to say when you have a mother like mine. There is nothing that she told me I couldn't do. I had to learn how to be very strong at a very early age. And so that really shaped just the decisions that I made. So yeah, so I'm excited to kind of talk more and share more about my background and motherhood and being a great partner, and also working in the C-suite.
Well, I think your mother would be very proud of you today. And I think she's living through you because from what I've seen, you seem like a very strong person. And that's why we're doing this, great episode about how your grit is your superpower. So we're going to talk about that more. So
Yes.
now, as a woman and as a woman of color, what are some of the persistent challenges you have seen women facing in the workplace?
It's so funny because that is a question I have been asked so many times.
Of course you
You
have.
know, and it's a question that we talk about. I think that it's more prevalent now and more important now. Look, I will say this. I think that, the challenges are still the same challenges that we were facing around, parental leave, around equal pay, around diversity, equity, inclusion. And we obviously know where we are right now and how our world is impacting,
Right.
EDI in a very negative way. And so that is kind of, I feel like we're taking definitely some steps backwards, unfortunately, in that area, but then also the opportunities. And I feel like there is definitely still a long a way to go, but having platforms like yours, right, where we can talk through things, and there are so many women that are doing dynamic things and also kind of carving their own way.
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely think that a lot of the challenges are still unfortunately the challenges. I don't think there's anything that has dropped, from the sky, anything that's been new recently.
Yeah.
I think that for a period of time, kind of directly after George Floyd, we were making some really good strides, particularly in the people of color realm. But, we all know that, sometimes things change. Whoever's in, leading our America at the time really can kind of shift the funding, the dynamic of that. And that's why I feel, you have to have respect for women. You have to have respect for people of color to want to fight for those things and want to show up for those things.
Right. I agree with you. I just feel like I always say we have made a lot of improvements, a lot of progression, but at the same time, we've taken some steps back and we still have such a long way to go, right? So just praying, hoping for I always say for the future generation, I mean, I have two daughters and a son, and I'm just like, hopefully for their kids and like the great grandkids, like we'll keep growing, we'll keep moving. As long as we go the right direction, that's wonderful. But it's like when we start taking a whole bunch of steps back, that's when it becomes a little bit fearful,
Yeah,
right?
and Pearl, to that thought, I mean, I think the same way about my boys. I have two sons, and I want them to feel like they have a world where they lift up women, they lift up people of color, they understand the value, right? And part of that is me showing up and showing them, like, hey, mom goes to work.
Hmm.
She works hard. She, supports other women, and those things also have to be taught too in so many cases, which I think is really important. You talk about your two daughters and how do they feel empowered and what opportunities are they being, presented to feel empowered, right? But I'm sure they see what you are doing and what you are doing today, right now. You are practicing what you are putting in the work to create opportunities for women, to give women a voice. And now your son sees that, right? And so he will value that because not only has he seen his mom, but he's seen how that has impacted his sisters. And I think that's really important too.
That's very true. That's a very great point. And we keep paying it forward, right? We see, we learn, and then the next generation will continue doing the same. So that's very valid. So, how have you personally navigated and overcome? I mean, first, actually, tell me some of your challenges, and then tell me just throughout being a woman and balancing, and how have you overcome these?
So, my challenges, some of them are, the personal aspect of like, you know, feeling like I am enough, right? And part of that comes with being confident in that space, right? I attended UC Davis and it's a great university, but there's a reason why I attended UC. I didn't want to go far from my mother, right? I wanted to be close enough. And I had to deal with, okay, so what opportunities can I create for myself knowing where I am, right? And I think the other challenges is from a professional standpoint is like when I worked at Target, I was in roles in which I was the only female in the region in that role. And I was in facilities, which every person that reported to me was a male, all of my peers were males, and my boss was a male. So,
How did that go?
and it's
How,
interesting that
how
you
old
were
how
mentioning,
old were you at that time?
I was in my mid to late 20s. Yes.
So
And
were the people
so,
reporting to you a little older?
yes,
Because that's a
yes.
little challenging, right?
And they had been, not only they were older, they were more experienced. And I am never one to say I know it all. So I feel like, I am here to learn. And so each person, and this is part of my leadership style, is learning what each person on my team brought to the table. Because I wanted them to feel like just because I'm leading you in more of a strategic leadership way. Someone has to bring the group together. Someone has to make the fiscally responsible decision. But I'm also leaning into you to give me the resources. Let's have a conversation. What are the alternatives, right? This is not a top down type of conversation. This is a collaborative
Elaborate.
conversation.
Exactly.
And those actually were some of my rewarding teams that I've led. I have no problem with being on teams where I'm the only female. I think that comes with being confident in who you are. I didn't know anything about the position, but I learned, right? And I spent time with each person. And that really helped me as well. So that was one of the challenges. And, Pearl, I didn't even know the position existed. And then I was wondering why there were no females in that position. So what I went out to do is now we're going to find some females to put in this position, right? Now I know it's possible. So let's do this. And we started to see so many more, but they didn't, sometimes you don't know, you're not aware. And I stepped out on faith. Someone saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And I gave it a try. And it was one of my rewarding career decisions that I have made. And it also groomed me to be more confident and comfortable in rooms where I am the only female and maybe the only diverse person.
So you
So,
you're in the
to answer your
spotlight. You
first question
shine
of my
that. You
challenges,
shine.
yes. And then, you asked about just over how I like navigated the challenges. So for me, it starts with understanding the type of company that you're interviewing for. So just as much as they want you to be the right fit for them, you have to make sure that company is the right
course.
fit
Yes,
for
that's
you.
that's a great point.
Right? So it's like, what do you guys value? Okay, so you value diversity, equity, inclusion, or you value career advancement for women. Okay, so how does that show up? How do I see that? How do I know that that's, important to you? And and if for someone that is maybe already at a job and it's like, I don't think those are questions that you should be having with those companies because people can say one thing, and I've heard this across the board. Oh, people don't know that companies have these EDI quotas, right? Companies get funding if they meet that particular quota, right? So, and diversity can be defined as so many different things depending on how you want to spin it. And I think that when it's like, well, what does support look like for me in this firm? And, I came to a firm where they truly wanted their firm to look like the world we live in today. And they gave me the reins to actively go out, find females, find diversity. I want you to make sure that you have the range to go find the people that will help bridge the gap because it's not just diversity of individuals, it's diversity of thought, right? It's having a different perspective. And I think that that is really important. So that's kind of how I've navigated those challenges. I think that there was a big awareness for a period of time, i.e., when George Floyd that happened. I think that people kind of diluted it since then. But this is something I work at every day from the top down. I don't care if they're, support staff. I want the support staff to be diverse, and it's not that we're singling out any particular group. It's just when I get resumes, I'm sure that there's resumes that cover all kind of walks of life. And so that's all I'm asking for. Now, if that person happens to be, you know, non-diverse or not a woman, then so be it. But at least I know I've given everyone a fair chance.
Right. And I think that's great because I think it's good for like the environment for people to work it. It is diverse. I mean, I feel like I'm like that even like with my children's school. Like I want my kids to meet people from everywhere. If they're just going to school and they have no idea that there's all sorts of different types of people and different cultures from all over the world. How are they going to survive the world when they actually go out there? It's going to shock their system. So even like,
Absolutely.
I mean, you're looking at it, but I'm like, even for me, I remember like when I was checking out schools, that's how I would check out it. And I would make sure that it had that melting pot, that diverse community so that my kids can grow and learn from each other and make friends from different cultures and diversity. So.
And it stretches our children, believe it or not. It's like we moved recently and our kids are at a different school, which is very different from the school that they were previously. And they have just grown immensely. And I love how they're asking questions that they never asked before. They want information. And it brings me so much joy because now I can have different types of conversations
Mhm.
with them. And also to continue to build, great, strong African American men at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, once you trigger their curiosity, that's how they really grow. That's
Yep.
the key, right? When they're asking those questions. So let me see. So how do you navigate the demands of being a mother, a wife, and a C-suite executive while maintaining just the balance of fulfillment? Because that's what we strive for, right? We try to do it all. And I've had so many episodes on this conversation. Can you really balance it all? How do you balance it all? And there's been different perspectives. So I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so this is definitely just my perspective. So it's interesting how you said wife, mom, C-suite. There's also that second layer or that fourth layer of like being a great friend or daughter
Yes, that's true.
or
There's
right,
so many
sister.
layers.
Like there's so many layers. And so for me, I live and die by organization and a schedule. So, I have a family calendar. Um, And, I'm like, let's, everything needs to be put on a family calendar. And I have my work calendar, which integrates. So utilizing the resources that we have. And then look, I am honest with myself. I'm not going to be at every practice, but I will be at the game. And, I will be at the performance. And it's interesting because my mom, being a divorced mother and having kids, two different elementary schools, two different high schools.
Ouch.
Yes, and my brother was super active. He was, he played football, ran track. I ran track. I was in different educational after school programs. She didn't miss anything. I don't know how she did it, but she didn't miss anything. But I don't ever, I had to be honest with myself. Like, I hadn't never noticed that my mom wasn't at a practice, right? But I know the things that she needed to be at, she was always
There.
there. And that to me is really prioritizing the valued, the impactful moments, right? So it is not, I don't work 9 to 6. I work 24/7. The work still has to get done, right? So, like today is, I have something at my kid's school, so I'll be leaving in a couple of hours, right? But it'll definitely be a couple hours before 6. So, like, okay, well, I may have to get back online later on to
Okay.
take care of some things. But it's just it's a life of trade-offs. It's a life of managing your time. And some people, I think, may struggle with like time management. I'm a 5 a.m. I like to be up at 5 a.m. I like to be working out at 5:30, done by 6:30. I have a few minutes before I start getting my kids up and get my day started. Because also being intentional with my time helps me to be a better partner, a
Yes.
better mom, more organized for the company, the decisions that I have to make. That makes a difference in how I navigate. So when you ask, like, how do I balance it all? It's also having a good partner, right? So today I can maybe only give you 20, but can you cover the other 80, right? It's never 50-50, or rarely is it 50-50, and I will say soliciting help does help. So, because I never, like some people have parents that can like help a couple days a
Right.
week, the way my mom was able to do it a lot of times is my aunt would help pick us up. My mom would drop everybody off. So my aunt could get to, she was a teacher, and so she got to school early. So she dropped her kids off at my house. My mom was in charge of drop off. My aunt was in charge of pickup. Right. And so if you can't afford, a nanny or a family helper, it may be that you can solicit some help and get trade-offs. I know several other single moms that work on the weekends. I don't work on the weekends. I do if I need to, but I'm available on the weekends. And so it's like, oh, I can take him to practice. Oh, just drop him off at my, like, because, and also, Pearl, you probably know, once you have more than two kids, it really doesn't make a
It's
difference.
chaos all the time, so it doesn't even
It's,
matter.
like I just try to make sure I look good doing it in heels, girlfriend, because once you have, it's like, I have boys, so it's like just adding another two to the
Yes.
bunch
Yeah,
does
it won't
not
make a
make
difference.
it really won't make a difference. So, that's how I figure out the balance is I'm very intentional about my schedule. I'm intentional about my time. I'm intentional about delegating, having a good team.
Delegating is huge.
Girlfriend, yes, it is like, okay. And also, the whole, will this matter in 5 minutes? Will this matter in 5 weeks? Like, do I have to be here? Do I have to attend this meeting? Or can I have this meeting go to someone else? Because also, when you delegate, you're leading, you're developing that other person as well. And if you continue to do the job that they could do, you're
They'll
doing them
never
a
grow.
disservice. You're doing them a disservice.
So you delegate at work and you delegate at home. And
Yes.
now do you actually, what about like for you, like personal time? Do you actually like sketch, pencil in a time for you and say,
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a walk? I mean, I know you have your 5 o'clock, but You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna have a day like 2 hours just by myself or have you do because that's like I always feel like we schedule everything with our kids, our husband, our
Yes.
families, our work, and then it's like, oh, I need to like I just want to sit down and like read a book for 20 minutes with a cup of coffee. And I can't even find the time in my calendar. I'm like lately that's how it's been. I'm like, I was just telling this to my kids, like, well, I just want to sit down and read a book for 30 minutes for
You
fun.
know, Pearl, so I do have a family assistant. She helped me. She helps me. Again, you got to find things that work for you. And everyone can't do this. But she works Sunday through Thursday.
Okay.
Why does she work on Sunday, Pearl?
So you can have your day off, your catch up day.
Yes, and she works, she comes in and so if I need to get my nails done or if I want to go to brunch with my girlfriends, which again, that's that fourth layer of like the
Yes.
friend time that, that was also the time like, I would spend time with my mom or, and just me and her time, not with, the kids all the time.
How old are your boys?
So they are 10 and 7.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's
a time where they need you a lot. And there's so many
yes.
branches of like, like school volunteering, games and recitals or whatever. There's a lot of
Yes.
activeness going on in that moment.
And they're active as well, and I want to continue to keep them involved in things. And so we figure out the schedule, but that is why it's not a traditional schedule. And also my husband works a crazy schedule, so I call it the default parent. I'm the default parent most of the time, and so I just have to make the schedule work for me. And if I get an extra set of hands, I'm like, oh yes, this is great. And if I don't, I don't. But he's also, he also shows up a lot, and he wants to, I mean, he is a great dad. They prefer him over me, which is fine because he does all the dad stuff. And that's, I mean, I feel like there is a transition that normally naturally happens with boys where it's like, oh, I want to go outside and, play basketball with dad. Great, wonderful.
Yes. You're like, yes.
So, like, you say less, yes. So, I do, that's also how back to your question about making time for myself. I know that I have Sundays, and I will say this, no one can be upset. I can't be upset about how my Sunday panned out because it's always scheduled. So if I chose not to take personal time, Shayla, that's on you.
That's on you.
If you
Yeah.
chose not to go, so I also have to hold myself accountable to that and make sure that, because as you know, our weekends are not our own.
Yes.
So if I didn't, she's not there all day, it's just a couple of hours. But if I chose to be at home and watch TV with the boys and fold clothes in that couple hours, well, that's where that falls on me. And so I try to really, sometimes I don't have anything to do in that time, and I'm like, I gotta leave the house, so I'm gonna go to a coffee shop and I'm just gonna read.
There you go.
Boom.
That's it. I think that's because like I have trouble myself with Sundays because I'm really trying to be mindful of making Sundays not like just basically like a relaxing day. I feel like it ends up being so much of okay, I have to do grocery shopping. I have to wash the uniforms. I have to do meal prep. And I always like have all these things lined up and I in there I always say, "Oh, and I'm going to like do a little gardening. I'm going to do a little reading. I'm going to do and then all of a sudden I notice those things that are for me just never happened. And it's so now I'm really trying to change it. And I try not to make too many, like, as a family, we try our best not to commit to like activities on Sunday if
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
because then we're burnt out. It's like all week to go. And then it's
Mhm.
like Sunday, we like to have like a nice, like relaxing family dinner and just kind of start the week fresh. And we navigate out of that, then we're all a wreck. But it's really, I think the key is for us as women to make that like it's like if I'm gonna relax, if Sunday's supposed to be my like I need to do that first. Like it's like Pearl, go read your book, go take a walk, do
Mhm.
the things that you want to do, and then when you're done with that, if there's time, then do all the other stuff because then you never get to yourself.
And Pearl, I will also say this. I try my best to maximize my time. So rarely am I doing one thing at a time. And what I mean is, I may need to check in with my aunt. And so I may go on a walk and check in with my aunt. Or I may go on the walk and I'll listen to my Audible book, right? I'll listen to my book on tape. Like if I'm in the car, and I'm going to be in the car for a long time, what can I do in my car while I'm driving to maximize my time? I will say I lost a lot of that during COVID because we weren't driving into work and everyone was at home and all up in my space. And I really appreciate those moments because for me, my girlfriends know I may not see you a lot. I may not be at every event, but I'm going to call you and I'm going to check on you, right? I'm going to call my aunts and I'm going to check on, like, that is how I show up for the other people in my family. And that's important to me too, because that brings me joy.
Right.
And so that is something I know sometimes people are like if I'm folding clothes and I want to watch a TV show or I'm folding clothes and I'm listening to, my book or I'm folding clothes and I'm watching a TV show. There is just not, oh, I'm just going to sit and watch a TV show.
But
So
sometimes don't you feel like it? Sometimes I feel this like I just want to like I'll be on my laptop and watching a show, and sometimes I'm like, I just want to watch a show. Like I don't want to worry about I have to check this email, I have to do this, or like just go for a walk and just have silence. Like
yeah.
just
And,
enjoy
and
the
there are
it's
moments where I
hard,
do
because
that.
I feel like we live in this world that there's not a
Mhm.
minute to spare, and sometimes I'm just like I just want like silence, a quiet time, just a little bit, not a lot, just a tiny bit,
Yeah.
just so that I can just hear myself.
And I do try to take a few minutes a day and do just quiet meditation to
Yeah.
calm my brain and
Yes.
my heart and also to ground myself. We are very fortunate in our lives to do what we do and have the lives that we have. And that is important too. So yeah, I do make sure that I take time to do that, particularly if I'm feeling, overwhelmed, because I definitely get overwhelmed
Yes.
with the to-do list. And grace is really important to me. Having lost a parent, I've had to really give myself grace in a lot of different spaces because you're also dealing with those emotions as well. And
Of course.
and that's a separate entity of having to deal with the day to day. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate. I mean, I love my mom is thank God here, and but I lost my dad 2 years ago, so
oh, I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
understand. And
It's
it's
a big
hard.
transition.
It's a
Yeah, it
huge
is a
transition. And now
hard
for me,
transition.
I have, I feel like I always have to worry now, like like you were talking about layers. Now I have another layer because I have to like kind of go out of my way and make sure like my mom is okay and what is her activities and what's going on, and
Yep.
she so it's like another layer to
Yep.
like all the other layers, because you these are the people you care about in your life and you want to make sure, but there's just not enough time in the day to give to every single thing. I have a dog too. The dog is
Yes.
sad too.
I know. The poor dog. Dog's like, well, what
Right?
about
She
me?
sits there and just waits
Right?
for me, like, okay, are you done? Like, when are we going for a walk? So it's
And they're
it's
just looking
hard.
at you, just patiently
Yeah.
and they just looking at you like, okay, so you let me know when you're done so we can go on this walk.
Yes. Well, I have to say too, I love the fact because that you say you communicate with your husband, because a lot of the times I think we have trouble as females communicating well, and we just assume like, well, I'm really busy, like why isn't he helping out? And that real communication is like, honey, I have a crazy day today. I can only do, like you said, I love like the delegation of like, I can do 20% today. I need you to do the 80%. And
Mhm.
just coming front, and it doesn't have to be like that every day, but just setting the daily plan and just saying, okay, I have meetings, I have this, I need you to step up and help me out. So that way there's no built up resentment, there's no anger that you have these expectations and he's not fulfilling them. So it's really important that we really communicate with our husbands and say, I need you to do this for me today. It's not going to work out. And then the next day, maybe he's going to do the same thing with you and say, I have this, I need, I can only do this. So I need you to do this part for me. So just having that open communication all the time is so important in a relationship.
And I will say that, you know, dads, husbands, they, believe it or not, a lot of them do want to show up and support. Sometimes they just don't know how. Like
Wow.
they're like, you do it all. Like,
Yes.
it's like you look like you got it under control. And deep
Yes.
down, I'm like, I don't. So, I'm like, he's off sometimes during the week, because of the way his schedule works, he's off, on weekdays. So I will make the appointment, but you can take them to the dentist, right? So I'll make the dentist appointment to work for your schedule and you can take them, right? So that I don't have to take a day off. You're already off, right? And so, and that, or it's like, hey, let's divide and conquer so we can kind of get to the bedroom at the same time and watch a show. So when I do watch shows, I try not to do anything. When I'm watching shows with him, I try not to do anything else.
They want your
Phones are
attention
down.
too.
Yeah. So, and so that's, sometimes is to your point, it's communicating because they don't know, sometimes they don't know how to, particularly when you have young children, like they're like all they want is their mom. They don't want me, right? Or they
Yeah.
don't, you have the milk, you have the this, you have how,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they also feel like, and so I think that as we have shifted and grown and our kids have gotten older, he's able to be a better partner in so many ways, and that has really helped too.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Now, let's talk about you've described grit as your superpower. So, can you share what that means to you and how it's shown up in your journey?
Yes. So when I was a target, so I was a target from 2009 to 2016. And at some point, as I was progressing up, in my career, they do this conference, it's called Lead, and it's like, a very rigorous, great opportunity to really learn about yourself. And they get feedback from like your family and they get feedback from your previous coworkers, your direct reports. It's a great opportunity for you to really learn who you are. And so I found out then that my superpower was grit. And I am a super hard worker. And I know people say that, but like it shows up in my personal life and in my professional life. I like if there is a task to be done, I just put my head down, I rub put my sleeves up and I just make it happen. Like, but also, it's how I grew up, back to my mom, like
Yes. Yeah.
she worked 3 jobs. I can be great at one. Like, you know what I mean? Like and for me, I love working. It gives me a sense of purpose. I really value navigating challenging circumstances. I'm super passionate. And I feel like everyone, particularly if you're a mom, you have grit. Everyone has a little bit of it. Now, when I get stressed out and I get overwhelmed, I power through. That is how my grit shows up. But like if you're a mom, you have grit because you have a child that's demanding your time and you have to, nurse or feed. It's the middle of the night. You have to get this done. There's a problem. Like I think as females have levels of grit that maybe we don't tap into.
Yes.
I'm not a creative in that like, space of, oh, I'm going to, like I have to work on my communication. I have to work on like the creative spaces. That's not something that comes naturally to me. Hard work comes naturally to me. And I always have to tell people, like, I have to also manage it too, because as my husband tells me, all the time, you give 100%. I'm like, I don't know how to get 95. Like, and I have to be careful because every job that I have had, I've gone in full throttle. I'm working, 16 hours a day just to make it happen, to finish whatever it is. And so that's how it's shown up for me. But also to my point of how I found out about grit, people have told me, like I've gotten feedback about it, right? Like Yes, you are really intense. You're very passionate, right? And so, that's how I know that grit is my superpower. And I have other things, but I know that that's something that naturally comes, for me.
I can see just like by interviewing you, like you have this like drive and you're just like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it. And that's great as a leader, right? And you need that kind of, the only thing is you just have to be careful for burnout, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the other side of it where you do too much and you're using that superpower like crazy and all of a sudden it's like, but it seems like, on that end, you're working with keeping it, balanced, like we talked about earlier. So I know we talked about you schedule time for yourself, you wake up at 5 and work out, you do some meditation. Are there any other habits or mindsets that, that have contributed to your success that you want to share with us?
You know, I am I believe in mentors. I believe in having great mentors. You know, I will tell you one of the mentors, I went to a Black Women's Lawyer Association event 3 years ago. She spoke at the event. She was the keynote speaker. And after the event, I had never met her. I didn't introduce myself. I just reached out to her and said, "Hey, I was super inspired by you." She is, a very successful woman in the entertainment business. And she's done really well for herself and she brought her family. And so like for me, it's having great mentors, building those relationships. I am not, I like to surround myself with other great people.
Yes. Yeah.
Like there is no jealousy, there is no, like that to me is super inspiring. It's super encouraging, and it challenges me to be like the best me I can be, right? To see and to celebrate people doing amazing things. And you would think like, oh, Shayla, why aren't you the CEO of such and such company. Well, obviously things come with a balance, right? So, you can't go after every job. You have to figure out the balance and what the priority is at the time. But I will say that, I have really tapped into my mentorship and also, paying it forward and mentoring others. And I feel like it's a blessing to be a blessing.
Yes.
And I truly believe that. And so, just as much as I have mentors, I try to do my best to, advise some of the younger or, same age, doesn't really matter, people that have come, in my life and, try to help them. So that is, definitely helped me on my career journey for sure.
I would definitely agree with you. I think part of everything else, I mean, you need to have a supportive system, you need to have a positive community. And as females, we need to continue to collaborate and help each other and support each other and push each other up. And same with me, like if I see someone else succeeding, I'm like, wow, how is she doing that? I would love to learn from her. Instead of sometimes other people have that negative attitude. Oh, well, why is
Yeah.
she up there? Or why is she doing that? It's like, ladies, let's support each other. Let's push each other up the ladder and just because together we're so much more stronger and powerful and we can learn from each other. So paying it forward and learning and mentoring each other it fills my bucket. I feel like if I'm helping someone else, I have grown in the process and at the same time, I want to learn from that next great person, whatever they're doing and just feel that inspiration and growth. And it's like if I go to an event and I see a speaker or get that new book, it's like immediately I feel that within me that I'm like all pumped up and I want to learn more and
Yeah.
grow. And that's it. That's really the only way you can learn and move up in your life is by doing
Yes. And being open to that, you originally asked me about, how, being a woman of color in the workspace, particularly, and, it's not about just your own advancement, it's also supporting the advancement of others,
that.
right?
Yes.
So you may have gotten passed up on that promotion, but maybe she's up, right? And so how do you show up for her,
Yeah.
right? How do you support her? Because supporting her supports us all,
Yes.
right? And that to me makes a difference in, how you were engaging and lifting up others, because it's not always going to be that everyone is as confident as they want to be. Or and sometimes, I will say this, that, I mean, some days I'm like, I don't know if if I can do this. But I think there's a study that says, men go after jobs that they're like 10% qualified for, or something like
Yes,
that. There was a
I've read
study
about
that was
that.
like, right. And it's like, but women don't. Why don't we? Right? Because we should.
Yeah,
I know I have done that, and I've encouraged my girlfriends and colleagues to do the same. It's like, okay, so you can learn. What's the worst that can happen is they say no. So I think to your point around just, how do we show up for it like that? I think to be inspired by other women, to lift other women, lift other people of color up, and create opportunities. I went to an event yesterday, and I had no correlation. I wanted to be in the room, right? I wanted to feel the presence of women, right? And it was like an investment finance event, and it was great. But I was invited, and I'm like, hey, I have an hour. Let me go. And I'm so glad that I went, because I felt so full. My cup was full
yes,
when
yeah,
I left last night. I called my husband and I said, "Oh my gosh, I love, this is why I attend these different things, because I feel full around women that inspire other women." So,
completely agree with you. Well, I read that one exercises you often use is a dinner table conversation. So, where you imagine your employees talking about you at the dinner table with their families, and if you're unsure what they might say, it could actually point to some gaps in your leadership. So, with that in mind, what do you think people would say about you in that setting?
I think that they would say that I'm fair, I'm super passionate, I'm firm, but I truly care about the people. And the reason I would say that is because I ask questions of my employees like, hey, how are things going? Are you getting what you need? How can I support you? But also back to the firm, and it's like in my position, you have to be, there are certain decisions that you have to make. And, I think that as someone who truly enjoys and wants, I talk about, live, and breathe around having a great culture, right? A great morale, around a company. Are we going to get it right all the time? Are we going to bat 1,000? No. And so, understanding that there are balance, there are decisions that we have to make, but just know that we fought through every option, right? We don't make decisions lightly, particularly when it comes to how it's going to impact the bottom line, which impacts overhead and our employees and how they support their families. And so, I think that employees would say about me that, hey, she's firm, like she's strong, she's passionate, but she's always fair. She always has time. Some people say, oh, well, open door culture. Like, I really have an open door culture. I laugh. I love when there's like two or three employees like lined up at my office. Like, I'm like, okay, come on in, guys. Because I want people to feel comfortable. And I could be doing all this work, and it may not be making a difference. So how do I know that I'm making a difference? And so that is really important to me. And I always tell people, if you don't know what someone would say at the dinner table about you, you should ask, because, we spend a lot of time in our workplaces, right? And, it's important to think that people, like, hey, let's know what's working, what's not working, right?
Right.
If you're concerned about what people say about you at the dinner table, there's definitely room for growth.
Yes, yes.
There's
You're
definitely.
like second guessing it, thinking about it, when you need to do some, reevaluating of yourself. Yeah.
Yes, right. It's just as much as like when I have dinner with my children and I check and I'm like, how did school go today? How did things have with your teacher? And I have one of my sons is very in tune with his emotions and how people make him feel. And I'm like, oh yeah, that didn't feel good. I can understand how that didn't feel good for you, right? And so, I may have to address it with the teacher or someone at school or whatever the case may be. So yes, definitely important. The dinner conversation is definitely important because Your kids may be at the table, and my kids will ask, "How was work today, Mom? How did things go? Did you have a good day? Did your schedule work out the way? Did you make your meeting?" Because, they know, like, oh, we got to get out the house on time today because mommy has a big
Uh-huh.
meeting.
Okay.
And so,
I think that's such a great exercise that you've implemented because now, I mean, that's a great way for all of us to think for any type of a setting, like even friends or work or whatever. Like, it's like at the end of the day, you want people to say positive things about you, just especially in a position as yourself that you want to, make sure that you're doing the right thing and you're leading the right way. And I think everything that you listed, those are great qualities of leadership that you want your people who are working to feel like they can, they're looking up to you, they can come to your office and you're open. You can be strict, you can be firm, but you're fair and you're open to communication and you will be a good listener instead of just shutting them up and saying, no, I don't have time, I can't do this right now. That's the kind of environment everybody wants to work in because then they're going to strive to do a better job because they have that good relationship with you where they feel like they can come to you for anything. So, but I really like that dinner table conversation because dinner table, if you think about it, it is usually and that's the time, the end of the day where everyone's more relaxed and, it's an intimate a conversation where people will be very honest.
yep.
And that's the key.
And if you have multiple generations in the house, it's like it's a great conversation. And I will tell you this, when people know what kind of person you really are in your hearts of hearts, when you do fall short or when you do make a mistake, there's so much more forgiving.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like, oh, I missed the mark on this, I'm sorry. And it's like, no, it's okay, I understand, but we can do this differently. If we can consider doing this differently next time, like, yep, no problem. And that happens to me not all the time, but it does happen to me where, like, oh man, how could I have done this differently? And they're like, oh, look, we understand, so let's talk through it now. So
Because none of us are perfect. We're all still learning and growing in the process. But if people know you're authentic and you're real,
mhm.
and you even say, okay, I should have done this differently, you admit to it, then you have that credit. And so they're not going to look down upon it. So I think that, I mean, I had so many other questions for you, but we're like running out of time. I'm like, this has been great. So,
This has been great for me as well. I
right?
love
It's like we can
this.
just go on and talk about this. It's like we're just
Yes.
having our own dinner conversation.
Yes, because we're in the trenches together, and there's so
Yes.
many things. I hope that, so many women are able to, take a few nuggets out of this because it is not easy. It is a challenge. No one does things perfectly, but we do our best, and that's all we can,
That's it.
ask of ourselves. And again, I told you my word is grace. It has been my word for quite the while because we need to extend grace and we need to be able to receive grace. So,
Yeah. And just live in gratitude because this is all a blessing of what we're doing and balancing it all, but being able to like you're doing, like you're living your purpose, you're following your dreams, and you're being a great role model to your family, just like your mom was to you. So you're following that path, which is it's beautiful. Okay, so let's see here. We've learned that balancing career and family starts with prioritizing yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. So self care must come first, even before your job or your loved ones. For busy working moms, that means scheduling self care like any other meeting, blocking that time for exercise or meal prep or even resting and reflection. In this episode, we've explored how women executives successfully navigate dual roles by setting clear priorities, building strong support systems at home and work, and embracing technology to stay connected. Unlike their male counterparts, women leaders are often expected to justify how they manage both their career and motherhood. But with intention and flexibility, it is actually possible. True balance is also dependent on the company's culture. As Shayla has expressed, she creates a community that actually happens. As a leader, you have the power to model and create a workplace that values family, and your well-being. It's not always easy, but the rewards of leading both at home and in the boardroom are deeply worth it. Shayla, thank you so much for being on Female Fluence. All the links will be on my show notes. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
No, thank you, Pearl.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.